international legal obligations and common decency. Through their actions, they have lost the legitimacy to govern. And the people of Libya have made themselves clear. It is time for Gaddafi to go, now, without further violence or delay. The international community is speaking with one voice, and our message is unmistakable. These violations of universal rights are unacceptable and will not be tolerated. This Council took an important first step toward accountability on Friday by establishing an independent commission of inquiry. On Saturday in New York, the United Nations Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution imposing an arms embargo on Libya, freezing the assets of key human rights violators and other members of the Gaddafi family, and referring the Libyan case to the International Criminal Court. Tomorrow, the United Nations General Assembly should vote to accept the recommendation to suspend the Gaddafi government's participation here in the Human Rights Council. Governments that turn their guns on their own people have no place in this chamber. The Arab League deserves our praise as the first multilateral organization to suspend Libya's membership, despite the fact that Libya was serving as the Arab League chair. We hope to see our friends in the African Union follow suit. We all need to work together on further steps to hold the Gaddafi government accountable, provide humanitarian assistance to those in need, and support the Libyan people as they pursue a transition to democracy. Today, I've had the privilege of consulting with a wide range of colleagues here in Geneva, and President Obama is meeting with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in Washington. We will continue coordinating closely with our allies and partners. The United States has already imposed travel restrictions and financial sanctions on Gaddafi and senior Libyan officials. We have frozen assets to ensure that they are preserved for the Libyan people. And we have halted our very limited defense trade with Libya. We are working with the United Nations, partners, allies, the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent, and other NGOs to set up a robust humanitarian response to this crisis. As we move forward on these fronts, we will continue to explore all possible options for action. As we have said, nothing is off the table so long as the Libyan government continues to threaten and kill Libyans. Ultimately, the people of Libya themselves will be the ones to chart their own destiny and shape their own new government. They are now braving the dictator's bullets and putting their lives on the line to enjoy the freedoms that are the birthright of every man, woman, and child on earth. Like their neighbors in Tunisia and Egypt, they are asserting their rights and claiming their future. Now, while the circumstances in Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya are each unique, in every case, the demand for change has come from within, with people calling for greater civil liberties, economic opportunities, and a stake in the governance of their own societies. And the world has been inspired by their courage and their determination. We see in their struggles a universal yearning for dignity and respect, and they remind us that the power of human dignity is always underestimated until the day it finally prevails. This moment belongs to the people, particularly the young people of the Middle East. On behalf of President Obama and the American people, let me say that we are inspired by what you are doing and heartened by what it means for your future. The United States supports orderly, peaceful, and irreversible transitions to real democracies that deliver results for their citizens. On this, our values and interests converge, because supporting these transitions is not simply a matter of ideals, it is also a strategic imperative. Without meaningful steps toward representative, accountable, and transparent governance and open economies, the gap between people and their leaders will only grow, and instability will deepen. What might have been possible in the 20th century, with new technologies and the power that people now have to connect, is no longer possible. And to hang on to systems that are unaccountable and that do not respond to the legitimate needs of one's people poses a danger, not only a danger to leaders, but a danger to all of our interests. By contrast, history has shown that democracies tend to be more stable, more peaceful, and ultimately more prosperous. Democratic change must grow from within. It cannot be implanted from the outside, and let me be among the first of many to say the West certainly does not have all of the answers. The first steps of change have come quickly and dramatically. It is, however, proving tragically difficult in Libya. In other nations, change is likely to be more deliberate and methodical. In all cases, the United States will support citizens and governments as they work for progress. We are well aware of the challenges that come with these kinds of transitions. You cannot create jobs or economic opportunities overnight. These changes can be chaotic, and in the short term, there will be new voices and political competitions emerging for the first time. And as history has shown, these new births of democracy, of freedom, of human rights, can be derailed by autocrats who use violence, deception, and rigged elections to stay in power or to advance an undemocratic agenda. But like Colonel Gaddafi, leaders who deny their people freedom and opportunity will, in the end, fuel the very instability they fear. So the process of transition must be protected from anti-democratic influences from wherever they come. Political participation must be open to all people across the spectrum who reject violence, uphold equality, and agree to play by the rules of democracy. Those who refuse should not be allowed to subvert the aspirations of the people. And leaders cannot claim democratic legitimacy if they abandon these principles once they are in power. Free and fair elections are essential to building and maintaining democracy, but elections alone are not sufficient. Sustainable democracies are built on strong institutions, including an independent judiciary that promotes the rule of law and helps ensure official accountability and transparency and stands against corruption. Recent days have underscored the importance of the freedom of expression, whether it's in the public square, through the press, or on the internet. Brave journalists have broadcast images of repression around the world, and the young people of Tunisia and Egypt have shown everyone what a force for democracy the open exchange of ideas can be. A vibrant civil society is also an indispensable building block of democracy. And not only in the Middle East, but around the world, citizen activists and civic organizations are emerging as strong voices for progress. They help develop solutions to tough problems. They hold governments accountable. They empower and protect women and minorities. The United States is committed to broadening our own engagement with civil society, and we urge leaders and governments to treat civil society as partners, not adversaries. There also must be, for transitions to thrive, a commitment to make economic opportunity available to all. Human rights, democracy, and development are inextricably linked and mutually reinforcing. We have seen how inequity and lack of economic opportunities drive people into the streets. So to earn the confidence of one's own people, governments have to deliver on the promise of improved lives. There is no doubt that the most important goal for most people in the world today is a decent life for themselves and their families. At the very least, that must be the goal that we deliver on. It is also particularly important that women and minorities have access to opportunity and participation. Nations cannot flourish if half their population is consigned to the margins or denied their rights. We have seen how women play a vital role in driving social and economic progress when they are accorded their rights and afforded equal opportunity. And in so doing, they lift up not only themselves, but their families and their societies. These are not Western principles or American ideals. They are truly universal. Lessons learned by people all over the world who have made the difficult transition to sustainable democracy. And as we look at what's happening now in the Middle East, of course, those changes will be shaped by local circumstances and led by local leaders. And people themselves will determine whether or not the change has worked. But universal principles will be important touchstones along the way. That is why, as we watch what is happening in Egypt, we hope that there will be a broad array of opposition voices and representatives to ensure that the reform process is inclusive. We want to see concrete steps taken, including enacting constitutional reforms and releasing political detainees and lifting the state of emergency. The United States stands ready to assist however appropriate, especially through economic assistance that helps promote reform and create greater opportunity. In Tunisia, we welcome the interim leadership's efforts to form an inclusive, broad-based government and its desire to hold elections as soon as possible. And we were heartened to hear this morning from Tunisia's State Secretary for Foreign Affairs that it will welcome the opening of a UN Human Rights Office and open its doors to all UN special rapporteurs. We are supporting the Tunisian people on this long and difficult road ahead. And as other important partners, such as Jordan and Bahrain, take steps, sometimes very difficult steps, to open their political space, we will stand behind them and support their efforts, because we are convinced that they will help advance all of our shared interests. But now there is an alternative vision for the future of the region that only promises more frustration and discord. Extremists and rejectionists across the Middle East argue that they are the ones who champion the rights of the downtrodden. For decades, they have claimed that the only way to achieve change is through violence and conflict. But all they have accomplished is to undermine peace and progress. The success of peaceful protests has discredited the extremists and exposed their bankrupt arguments. Iran, for example, has consistently pursued policies of violence abroad and tyranny at home. In Tehran, security forces have beaten, detained, and in several recent cases, killed peaceful protesters, even as Iran's president has made a show of denouncing the violence in Libya. Iranian authorities have targeted human rights defenders and political activists, ex-government officials and their families, clerics and their children, student leaders and their professors, as well as journalists and bloggers. Last week, the United States imposed new sanctions on Iranian officials for serious human rights abuses. Here at the Human Rights Council, we are proud to be working with Sweden and other partners to establish a special rapporteur on Iran. Its mandate would be to investigate and report on abuses in Iran and to speak out when the government there does not meet its human rights obligations. Iranian human rights advocates have demanded this step to raise international pressure on their government. This will be a seminal moment for this Council and a test of our ability to work together to advance the goals that it represents. Indeed, every member of this Council should ask him or herself a simple question. Why do people have the right to live free from fear in Tripoli but not Tehran?